Hello, my friends.
Welcome, Carl.
Again, we have gathered together in this joyous occasion for us, as we hope it is for you, to be able to share some ideas and some thoughts and to address the questions that you have put forth into the ether waves. It is always a grand time and a time that we look forward to be able to touch back with all of you, especially you, my dear friends, many of you who I knew while I walked on the earth plane, and now my new friends who I have met since I have become part of the world of spirit. It is such a joy to be able to assist you, and it does my heart good to be of assistance. So with that being said, we are ready for the first question.
Thank you so much, Carl and friends, for being here. The first question is from Fenton. Would you please give us some detailed information about Atlantis, i.e., how long ago did they exist? Where were they located geographically? How long did their civilization survive? Did they have any connection with advanced species? And what caused their demise?
The civilization of which you are inquiring is an ancient one that used to exist in the area of what you know as the Caribbean Sea. In that area, there was a landmass that was above the water at that time. The people who lived there were of a particular mindset, for they lived at a time before the world of religions were created, before the ironclad theology closed down the brain, so that the people of Atlantis were using their brains to full capacity, and they did have used the gifts of the spirit. They were an advanced civilization. They had technologies that you still not have reproduced in your time. Unfortunately, just because they were advanced doesn't mean that they were in balance. And unfortunately, within time, they began to believe that they could do certain things that were not beneficial to their society, not so much between the people, but more in their environmental states. They were experimenting with certain types of laser lights that were available in those days. Because what you have to understand is that this happened centuries ago, so many centuries ago, more like probably between 8,000 and 9,000 years ago. It was a time when the earth was very different than it is today, I should say. It was a planet that did not see the sun too often, because around the planet there were heavy clouds that were around the planet and protecting it and shielding it from certain rays that were coming from the other aspects of the universe. And with the use of these lasers that they created, they did not realize that as they shot these lasers up into the air, that it would penetrate into the cloud system and in effect cause damage to the cloud system. And eventually that cloud system began to rain. And you have in your records a story about a great flood that encompassed the earth. And that great flood did happen. And it was caused by the people of Atlantis because they destroyed the cloud structure above, and that cloud structure began raining, and therefore more rain entered on the surface of the planet. and so much rain occurred that the land mass that was Atlantis, and still is Atlantis, but is now underwater in what you know as the Caribbean Sea. So the Atlantis civilization was advanced, but they had limited concept of what was going to happen because it was not in their consciousness to even think about that. People often speculate that if there was only good, things would be out of balance. If you didn't have evil, you wouldn't appreciate the good. That's not exactly correct, and the dualities are not the best for things. But you have to understand that the Atlanteans did not have in their consciousness to think about the consequences of what they were doing, because they were living in such a society and such a consciousness that that concept did not enter their brain, and therefore they could not predict or think ahead what might happen by shooting off those laser beams. So it was not due to their anything of their fault. It's just that it never occurred to them because they did not think that way, because they didn't have that duality system that you live in today. So therefore, that is how we will answer that particular question.
Thank you. And did they have any connection with advanced species?
They, my friends, I'm sorry, yes, well, since there is no time and space, technically those souls still are. But yes, they did have connections with other species, other people from other planets. But you have to understand that they were working in what you would call a state of telepathy. So they did not really have to bother with language. They understood each other's thoughts, just as I am assuming you are aware that many animal species today communicate through telepathy. They don't use words, but they do communicate to each other through thought. The thought energy has no limitations, and therefore the Atlanteans were able to communicate with beings living on other planets and other galaxies through the process of thought.
Thank you. The next question is from Sandra R. As a Catholic, we were told the angel Gabriel appeared to the Blessed Mother and said she will bear a son and you will name him Jesus. Is this story really true, or is it something made up by the Catholic Church?
Well, the answer is both. It is a story it is something that actually happened, but it was not an entity called Gabriel who talked to her. It was a being from another galaxy who were supervising, I would say, the incarnation of the man you know as Jesus. It was planned from the higher realms, and from the higher realms, we are also including other planetary systems, that the Earth plane had decayed to a point and was encased in the darkness of ignorance to a point that it needed to be stimulated with some light and some knowledge. And therefore, the soul of Jesus volunteered to come back and try to bring some enlightenment to the people. He entered the body of his mother. And he went into that, what you call egg, and he manipulated the DNA because he had the power to do so. And he changed the DNA so that he would be born in a body whose brain would work 100% and therefore be connected with all the gifts of the spirit, and therefore be able to talk to what he termed his father, but he was actually talking to the beings in the higher dimension who were there watching over him during his life and helping him teach. You have to understand that he came to the world as a way shower and a teacher. And he did that. And he upset a lot of people. And he was connected enough to understand that what he was doing would cause his demise. But he came to share truth. And it was his desire to have this truth come into the world. Unfortunately, when he left, there was not the control and not the understanding of his teachings, because, my friends, without trying to be condescending and without trying to be unkind, you have to understand that because of your social conditioning, because of the way you were taught, the way you were raised, the religions that you were taught, even if you have, and you have broken away from them, and you have much more of an understanding. Let us just say that the average person is walking around with a quarter of a cup of capacity to understand enlightenment. You are walking around with a cup capacity to understand enlightenment because you have been studying and you have been learning and you have been advancing, and we applaud that. But to understand the true nature of what the Master Jesus was trying to teach, you would need a 2.5 cup capacity. And this is why his teachings were not understood, because the people could not absorb it. They did not have the capacity to do it. And his teachings were changed. They were manipulated, sometimes intentionally, and sometimes because they didn't understand the completeness of them. So therefore, again, it has become time to bring truth to the world, to try to increase everyone's cup so that their capacity is a bit higher. And that is what is being attempted to do now. The story about Gabriel, an angel, coming down to talk to Jesus' mother, simply stated, the story has been recast so that Catholic Christian characters are playing the story. It was a higher being that came. Some people might say that higher being was an angel or even an archangel, but we don't use those terms, and we definitely don't use the wings. So therefore, there's truth in the story. It actually happened, but not exactly as the person who asked the question was taught.
Thank you.
Understand?
Thank you. The next question from Fenton. Did an advanced alien race genetically create human DNA? And if so, what was their purpose?
My friend, they did not invent DNA. They manipulated DNA. They reorganized it, but they didn't invent it. They had the capacity, just as I said, Jesus had the capacity to go into the body of his mother and change the programming in the DNA. The DNA systems have been let's just compare it to a piano. If you sat down, you could play one tune, or you could play another tune, or you could play a third tune if you know how to use your fingers to make that instrument work. And that is what happened to the DNA. There are people, there were entities, there were beings, if you want to call them that. There were people from not this earth plane that understood the science, that knew how to play the piano of DNA, if you want to use that phraseology, and was able to put in a certain tune here and a different tune there and another tune there. Did they know exactly what they were going to do? Not always. Sometimes it was an experiment to see how it would work, because they did not necessarily know the outcome. And that is why they continued to visit and continued to change the notes and reorchestrate what they had done to improve the species on a regular basis. You know, this is evolution. And therefore, this is what was happening back in the day, and even to this day, it does happen, because DNA, as you understand in your times, can be coded, it can be manipulated, either for good or for bad in your situation, and in your dualities. The original beings were trying to speed up the process. They were trying to create human vehicles, human bodies that would have the capacity to be in contact with other dimensions, to be in contact with other planets, and have the capacity to use the telepathy that we spoke about before. So yes, there was manipulation, there was fine tuning of the DNA codes.
Thank you. The next question is from Susan Yu. This is regarding the spike protein, which I understand is floating around everywhere now. Do you know of a frequency that is higher than it, that can dissolve it if it enters our bodies? Any other wisdom on helping with dissolving the spike protein is very welcome. Thank you.
The question that you pose is rather an advanced one. So we will give you an answer that would be appropriate, but not everyone who hears this may be able to access this. There is nothing on your planet that cannot be altered if it is done correctly. Let me give you an example. You have in the Book of Books that story of the Master Jesus, who we've been talking about, who went to a wedding and walked between some clay pot containers that contained water and changed it to wine. He had the ability to adjust the frequencies because everything you know has a frequency. Everything is energy, you know, everything. whether it is your bodies, whether it is the earth, whether it is water. Everything is energy vibrating on a certain frequency. The Master Jesus understood this principle and was able to go and change the frequency of the water and adjust it to the frequency of wine. What you are asking about is the same exact thing. You want to change the frequency of this protein so that it is no longer in existence or no longer has the power it currently has. Yes, it is done, can be done, but are you able to do it? That is the question. And not everyone who walks on this earth plane can. We ask you, if you wish to pursue this, is to go into a meditative state and with your thoughts and with your energy and with your consciousness, reach out to those who have the knowledge to do this and ask them for the assistance to do it. There is such a thing, you know, as being able to do certain things that you can't do because you become the vessel to do it. The words you are hearing are coming through a vessel who is allowing this to happen. So we are saying to you that although you may not have the knowledge that the Master Jesus had, that does not mean you cannot make it, you cannot have it happen. You yourself cannot make it happen, but you could be the vessel to have it happen, provided you make the connections with the correct higher beings who have the knowledge and capacity to do that. We have spoke about the people who have gone through and played the piano of DNA. They have the capacity of doing the change that you are seeking. So there are entities out there. You need to make contact with them and have them understand your desire and have them work with you and through you to achieve what you are seeking. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you. Next question from Susan. If you are focused on a timeline that you want to happen, is it counterproductive to also prepare for if that timeline doesn't happen? Does it take away from the absoluteness of focusing on the timeline you want to happen?
We say to you that if you need to make preparations in case it doesn't happen, make the preparations. Have your safety net established. And once it is established, lock it away and do not think about it and do not deal with it unless you absolutely have to and it becomes necessary. Once your safety net is there and put away, focus on what you need, what you are trying to achieve, and therefore bring that in with your absolute focus, with your absolute knowingness that it will happen. Preparing for it not happening is not stopping that. Oh, it will only stop it if you continue to put energy and consciousness into it. So what we are saying is, be prepared, forget about it, and manifest what you need to manifest so that when it happens, you can have a good laugh and say, oh, look how I didn't believe and I prepared because it wouldn't happen, and yet it happened. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that at all. For that way, you have the confidence to go forward with 100% focus on it. You don't have to worry, well, suppose it doesn't work, I'll be stuck. Now, you're not stuck. You made the preparations. They're there. You can forget about it. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you. We have another question from Luvera. Can you provide a visual description of some aliens, and do any of them resemble us?
My friend, that is an interesting caveat you put on. Do they resemble us? Do you mean energetically, do they resemble us? Do you mean physically, do they resemble us? Do you mean spiritually, do they resemble us? In some of those answers, yes, and some of them, no. So the physicality of aliens will vary because they are coming from different places. They have different color suns, they have different colored planets, their skin may be different, their eyes may be larger. Everything about their physicality can be different. They can be short, they can be tall, they can be blue, they can be silver, they can be many different things. And in reality, it doesn't matter. What matters is their energy that they embody, the energy within them. Because as I was stated before, everything is energy, everyone is energy, and it doesn't matter where in the universe you are they are coming from, their origin, it doesn't matter. They are still energy, and they still are residing as you are in a physical form for most of them. Some of them do not need the physical form, and some of them put on their physicality when they enter this particular dimension, because this dimension is so focused on physicality. How often do you refer to the people living in the world of spirit as the world of the unseen? You are focused on the seen, and therefore you do not focus on the energy all the time, even when you should. So therefore, it is they are here to assist. Many of them are here to assist in the transformation of you going from the age of ignorance into the age of knowledge, because as was stated before, some of you are walking around with a very small cup to hold your consciousness, and you really, in the age of enlightenment, this cup is going to be so much larger. But people, just as little children, have what they call growing pains as they become taller, human beings will have growing pains as they become spiritually larger, because they have to deal with change. They have to deal with coming to the realization that what they learned for all their life was not exactly the truth. In fact, to be stated more correctly, many times it was a deliberate lie, in order for them not to think and for order for them to obey their religious leaders. So that in itself is a tremendous upheaval within the souls of those people, within the minds of those people, as they come to have to deal with that. And then they have to learn about how things should have been, how they will be. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of growth to happen. And it will not be an easy process for some, because they will not be able or willing to let go of their childhood teachings, of their teachings of the past, of the teachings that they held for all of their life. It is a very difficult thing to do. And you also have to understand, my friends, that it is a multi-layered process. It is one thing for the intellectual mind to come to the realization of these changes, but then there's an emotional level, and sometimes the slightest little thing can trigger an emotional attachment to that teaching of ignorance. Even though the mind understands that it's no longer true, the emotion's still there. The memory is still recorded in the soul, and that hasn't been erased. So it is a long process to totally abandon and change all of this. So for those of you who are going through these processes, we ask you to have some patience with yourself. And for those people who haven't begun that journey yet, but will have to in the future, we are hoping that you will be there to assist and guide them, because you will have had that experience of trying to let go. So imagine what it's like for these beings that you are interested in to allow humans to grow into the consciousness that they're trying to project, because they understand it is not like a light switch that you just go from one to the other instantaneously. It is very much like a rheostat, and a very slow moving one, in order to leave that darkness and enter into the light. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you. And taking off on that, humans have been so easily deceived over the years, as is so evident with our current world situation. So I guess it's just, we need to continually evolve ourselves to get to the point where if we do meet, and quote, an alien, that in our heart center, we can tell if their energy is good or if it's deceptive, because that can be a challenge.
You are precisely right. What we are trying to teach all of you is to become more sensitive to energy. We are asking you to open yourselves up to the world of spirit so that you can communicate with them. What does that mean? That means we're asking you to learn how to quiet the mind, so allow yourself to become sensitive and raise your spiritual energy so that it could link up with the spirit's energy, and that connection will start to produce thoughts within your mind. We are asking you to become sensitive to that. It is not our desire, nor is it our need, that just because a medium does exactly what we just spoke about, that you all become mediums and start to commune and start to hold readings and start to talk with spirits who are in the spirit world. That is not really what we are speaking about, although you are free to do that if you so wish. But what we are asking you to do is to open up your sensitivity to energy, so that when you encounter an energetic force or an energy from a outworlder, if you call them that, or from a spirit from the spirit world, and they try to send some thoughts to you about conditions in your life, or how you should handle a certain thing, or how you should avoid a certain thing, that you are sensitive enough to receive that energy, understand that it's not coming from your own mind. You didn't think that up. It's not an idea that emanated from your own consciousness. To be aware of that, and then to take that idea, and we are not saying do it, we are saying consider it. Does it feel right to your energy to do that? Then proceed. Does it feel incorrect? Does it feel, oh, I don't like that? Then don't. So that is also part of what needs to happen. As was written in the book of books, you need to judge the spirits. You need to judge the information that you start to perceive, to see if it resonates with you. Because if it doesn't, then we advise you not to follow it. as you stated before, there are many who want to mislead. And therefore, we ask you to always be aware and to put it in the balance of your soul to feel whether the information should be followed or not. You understand?
Yes, thank you. So, question from Carol C. On our financial system. So we understand that changes are very imminent to totally flip over our financial system. And some people are afraid they're going to lose everything. Do you see an increase in a good situation for the people?
We would advise, if at all possible, that you take some of that finances that you have and invest it in precious metals, because within financial crises, the precious metals always hold value. The financial system that you are talking about is in a tug of war between the good guys and the bad guys, if you want to use those terms. It is in a state of flux, and it is hard to know at this time which will win. There are people who want to turn the financial system so that it is an aid to people and not an enslavement of people. The people who have enslaved people with money want things to stay as they are and are working on different ways to keep their hold over the financial system, just as the religious people want to keep their hold over the minds of people. This is part of the struggle of what's happening in this particular point in time, because as you approach the age of enlightenment, these enslavements will disappear one way or another. Will it be smoothly? Will it be through much upheaval? That cannot be said at this point, for that is not written. You must understand that and these are difficult topics to talk about, but if you study the ideas of quantum physics and quantum ideals, and you understand that time is not really linear, but is more kind of like a tree, where as you go along one branch, it branches off, it can go left and right, and you go left and you go to another place, it goes left to right, and on and on and on and on and on. There are many possibilities in the future that are out there. Which one will actually occur in your timeline? That is difficult to say, and it depends on how people react, because people have the capacity through their minds to it's kind of like your computers that you have, where you have that term a joystick, where you're able to take and move it to left or right and guide it along on your computer screen to go to a certain direction. Well, your minds are on the joystick of time, and in a way can influence the outcome. But yet there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have their hands on the joystick. So which one's going to win? That's where it gets to be very difficult and hard to predict. So we ask you, as we said before, to prepare for the worst and then proceed on manifesting the best.
Thank you. And one last question from Carol. I'm hearing that the controllers, the cabal, have apparently been enslaving the human race for 100,000 years. If that's true, how did that affect life when Ramtha lived as human 35,000 years ago?
We say to you that those numbers are not necessarily correct because these ways of measuring time have changed over every so often. And there is different ways to talk and count and everything else. So we're not necessarily saying that that is correct numbers.
Mhm.
What we will agree with that, yes, there have been people who have been tyrants who wanted to control things and keep power for eons and eons in time, going back to a very long time, even into the times of that you speak of, where Ramtha had a life on the earth plane. In those particular times, as you're asking about, you must understand that their communication system was not what it is today. So that when a tyrant had control over people, it was over a certain location, and that the location in our country further away would not necessarily have the same amount of enslavement going on as another. As the entity you are speaking of, it did live in a time where there was a certain amount of control exhibited over the people, but yet there was a certain amount of freedom there also. There was a certain amount of his battle, of his living, where he was trying to embody the force and the warlike features that he thought that he must, because of the way that that his society demanded at the time. And he did his best at the time. But he came to a point that he realized that all of this was man-made. He came to the point where he recognized and came into contact with his soul and his soul memory. And therefore, he began to feel the in alignment of what he was feeling in his soul energy and the world he was experiencing. And that is when he withdrew. And that is when he started to realize that the real answers lie within, not without. Not listening to the tyrants, but listening to the divine energy that is within the soul. He listened just to the message that the man Jesus taught, to that the kingdom of God is within. To find God, turn within. And Ramtha, the enlightened one, turned within. And he began to follow what his soul was telling him to do. His soul energy was telling him to do. And he was learning the dichotomy between what he was feeling from his soul and what the earth plane was telling him and the people on the earth was telling him. And he came to the point of realization that he had to put down the social consciousness of mankind and follow the divine source within. And that is what he did. So therefore, this is a journey that all of you will be on at some point of another. When we asked you before to become more sensitive to the world of spirit, what we are saying is we are asking you to find the God within, to reside in that energy, and to start having your consciousness and your being there. Because when you are there, you are automatically becoming more attuned to the world of spirit. The kingdom of God, as you know, is the world of spirit. The kingdom of God is within. It is all one and the same. So we ask you to go into a meditative state and go into your soul consciousness, to concentrate on where your soul is. Your soul is a ball of energy that resides under your breastbone and in the middle of your chest. It is about the size of a golf ball, but it is a powerhouse of energy, and it emits a light. And the light that flows from that is your auric field. It goes out in all directions and ends up being like a bubble around you, an egg-shaped bubble of light. Visualize yourselves sitting in that bubble of light. Go into your soul energy, connect with the Lord God and Goddess of your being, bring it forth, and we bring it forth, we're asking it to expand. You're asking your auric field to grow brighter, to surround your whole physical body. If you go into the book of books, and the man Jesus said, go into your closet of prayer and pray incessantly. The closet he was talking about was not a cupboard someplace with a door on it. It was sitting inside your auric field. That is your closet of prayer. So you go into a meditative state, go into a prayerful state. You visualize right here where your soul is. You see the light coming out. You see the light expanding around your body. You feel that light around your body as you are sitting there. And it is then that you can address the Lord God of your being and ask it whatever you want to do. Ask it to manifest whatever you need to manifest. But we ask you to help you to become more sensitive to the world of spirit. We ask you to create a speed dial button, if you want to use that term, so that you can bring your consciousness into that exact spot in a matter of a second or two. You don't have to go through a whole meditative process, because if you program yourself, if you decide for yourself that that is what you need, you can enter it quite quickly within a matter of a few seconds. And therefore, but you need to have the intent to do that. And when you are in there, when you are in that space, in that holy space, and that word holy is very appropriate, because the word holy actually means to shine. And when your auric field is bright and expanded, it shines. So when you go into that holy space, you ask the Lord God, the goddess of your being, to come forward and manifest what you need. And you focus on that, and you breathe into that, and you know within your being that that will happen, and you will manifest what you want in time. It's not an instant switch. It does take some time, and that has to do with vibrations and all kinds of things, but it will happen. If you proceed with it with your all-knowingness and your divine power, you have to realize you guys are gods. Jesus taught that. You are gods. Gods create. Gods can manifest. You are in charge of your destiny. You create your own happiness or unhappiness, as has been taught by this organization for many years. But you do it through energy. That is what you do it. You do it through your thinking, your consciousness, and you put the energy into it and you have it manifest. But you can't be wishy-washy. You can't do it half-heartedly. You have to put your whole soul passion and your whole power of your soul into that to make it happen. And you will know it happens. Therefore, you can create whatever you need to create. You can create, and we ask at this time once again to establish a link with other dimensions, with other people, And as long as you know that you are seeking the good and the light, and you know that with all your being, you will attract the good and the light. The law of attraction, I'm sure you have heard of that. So therefore, that is what we suggest to you. It is something that has been taught for thousands of years. Good part of it still remains in your book of books, although it's unrecognizable to most, but it's there. So we ask you to use that technique as you proceed into the days to come, as you proceed going over the threshold into the age of enlightenment. Having that skill of connecting with people from higher dimensions will be extremely important. So we ask you to work on your skills now. We spoke today of playing the piano to change DNA. Let's go back to just playing the piano in the physical world. There are very few, and I mean very few people, who can just walk over to a piano and start playing something that a composer wrote without a lesson, just because they have the soul memory from a past life. For most people, they have to take a lesson. They have to take many lessons. They have to sit for hours and practice to develop the skill. We are asking you to develop the skill of sitting in your divine energy and have the divine remembrance, the divine memory that you are God and you can create. For that is your birthright. That is what every human being on the planet was supposed to do before that was taken away from them by religious leaders who wanted to control everything. So we ask you to resurrect that. We ask you to bring it into your life. We ask you to use it whatever way that assists you, because you are going to create your own reality and you are going to create what you need with those tools. So be it.
So be it. Thank you. That's the last question, but really want to thank you for what you've just said about the tools and about the techniques that you just shared with us for connecting with our own soul and with spirit. And we will do that. Thank you so much, Carl and friends. No more questions.
It is beyond our it is difficult to express what it feels like for us to go in and to bring forth this ancient knowledge, this ancient wisdom that at one time was known and practiced for so many years. And for us to be able to share with that with you once again, with the understanding that you will begin to employ it and begin to utilize it and begin to start walking on the path that you were destined to be. So it is with great joy that we are able to bring these ideas into your consciousness. Now it is up to you to use them to the best of your abilities. We thank you for listening. We thank you for your wonderful questions. And we ask that you walk in the light, walk and attune to your soul energy, and begin to use that as your powerhouse to energize not only your life, but you'll be energizing people. You'll be energizing people around you, where they will start to notice a change within you and want to understand what is going on. Follow your soul, your gut feeling on how much to share with that person asking you. But feel free to at least plant a seed or two. For if that seed is planted and they nourish it, they'll be coming back for more information and more and more. And once they start doing that, you will know that they are interested in learning, and you will become their teacher and to help to bring them into the age of enlightenment. So we ask you to work on this to the best of your ability and to the best of your dedication. I leave you with my most profound blessings. I leave you in a state of peace. Perhaps there is not peace on the earth, but we are surrounding each of you with the vibration of peace within your soul and within your mind, so that you may proceed on your journey in peace. So be it.
So be it.
Thank you, my friends.